Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. I don't know if you can say thank God it's Friday because this week has been, yeah, we know, Russ. Calm down.
You're all stuck at home. Russ has got a book for you to read.
Yeah, well, okay, speaking of being stuck at home, I have to say, yesterday I had to venture out, and it's not, I can't put it to the level of panic, but it is ridiculous in terms of people at supermarkets. And I know that this is,
I was just there, but I would never brave one of the big ones because I know better. I went into like Aldi and I gave myself 30 minutes. That's what I always do. And I was still able to come out with a week's worth of shopping without dealing with all of that.
Well, I went a little later in the day. I went like around 6:30 at night, which may have been a mistake because a lot of people were coming out of work.
They come out of work and they go right there.
But it wasn't. Let's just say I saw the after effect, and the after effect was, and I don't get this, and I love some people in the chat to explain it to me. Toilet paper? Question mark. I mean,
I've heard, and there's something I think to this is that I think there is a psychological thing in terms of when things are really getting stressful. People like sort of things that give give them some measure of calm. And
nothing just calm like wiping your ass.
One of those things.
Okay, but this is like, you don't have to be a mathematician. You could figure out how much you're going to need, right? Even if a store closes, I know how many times I go to a day. I know exactly what I'm going to need. I don't have to stock up for the next century for that. I don't.
It's like almost people are thinking, I mean, if this is because they're going to be away for 2 weeks, it's like it's the they're treating it like it's the apocalypse.
I know, and for
the extreme end of things, and
the water out of your tap is better than most of the bottled water you're purchasing.
Well, well,
it is, Mike.
I mean, reality. This is
not in the place. Not in the place that I live. I mean,
maybe. I mean,
filtered water from, say, the refrigerator. Okay.
That's what I had, and I had to because with and Russ knows this, where I live, because we're up at a higher elevation where my house is at. Our water is very hard water, so we literally had to put in like a double filtration system in our house,
right?
To get it, and then it goes to the fridge to
unfiltered tap water. That's what
the supermarkets in our area are limiting people to 2 pallets or 2 packages of.
I think that's fair. I think that's
not toilet paper, but of water. Yeah. And I'm like, why is everybody hoarding water? I mean,
they think everything's going to shut down. They're panicking, thinking everything's going to be shutting down, and like it's going to be.
Believe me, you're
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
You're guaranteeing that these supermarkets are staying open by buying as much. They are good. It will have to be a nuclear war for them to shut down.
Right. Here's 2 tips. If you're really worried about water, you could have it in your bathtub at any time, fill it up. That could be your drinking water, and use one of your 2. If you have 2 toilets, you could use one of them for water too, because it's drinking water in there too. Just saying.
No, I just bear with me.
It's true, Anthony. I mean,
I'm imagining people's reaction. I understand that, but I'm imagining some of our listening audience's reaction to toilet water.
That's right. I do need to break in, and I'm going to mention that Baseball's Best Rookies came in the mail today, and you can see there's a nice quote from Mike Piazza there, local Philly guy, but also played for the Dodgers and Mets. Went into the Hall of Fame as a Met. Just saying. A lot of great players in here. Some pictures just added. This was out before, but it was out like back in 2009. 2010, 2010, I think. So we added some new players. We added like Bryce Harper. We added Jacob deGrom. We added Ohtani. We added some new players. Couldn't add Pete Alonso because, that's the first question everybody asks. And it's like, if I added Pete Alonso, it would slow up the printing 6 months because by the time he gets announced as the actual Rookie of the Year,
it would slow up the sales even more.
So, but the idea is this isn't just the greats. Like we have a lot of guys that won it and maybe only played 2 or 3 years. Guys like Joe Charbonneau, guys like Scott Williamson. There's guys like that. And then we do rank the greatest of all time. So a lot of things did get updated. So if you want to check it out, check it out. You can get it at Amazon or message me and I'll get you a signed copy.
NASCAR 427 in the chat says, "Is Tang still available at the supermarket?" Yes, it is, and I stocked up.
You're the only one. Like again,
Tang's primary stockholder, Mike Augello.
When they do an autopsy, I mean, they're going to open me up and I'm going to be all orange inside.
Wait, I thought he was a Maple Leafs fan. Why is he leaking orange?
Mike, why don't you tell everybody why you're at least in better health today than you were yesterday?
I'm sorry?
Why don't you tell everybody why you're in better health today than you were yesterday?
Well, as opposed to just 2 seconds ago when I was coughing my lungs out. No. I took Mucinex, and
because I told him another good tip,
right,
is go to the dollar store. You can get the Mucinex DM, which has the cough suppressant in it, for $1, and it works great. Now I have to tell you, ever since we've been getting all this rain for months and months and months, I take it 3-4 times a week now. The plain stuff. So, and you can get it at the dollar store, and it works.
Panicking too, because it's like. Because of the symptoms and everything, Vernon, very well could just be, and I know I have a little bit of a nasal drip right now myself, a little bit of chest. I feel fine otherwise, but again, we just don't know, and that's part of the issue. But it could very well be normal spring stuff.
Oh yeah, it most likely is. But I'm just saying that's one way to alleviate your symptoms, so people don't think like you're infected.
Right, but I can tell you right now that Tang works for me.
It doesn't work. Tang didn't even work for the astronauts. They dumped that stuff out in space. They shot it out the back door in space. Trust me.
It got them to the moon and back.
Literally.
You know what got them to the moon and back? A brilliant woman with a slide rule.
Tang afterburn.
No, hold on. The Apollo mission, a brilliant woman with a slide rule got them back because they were not going to make it back. Otherwise, Tang didn't have anything to do with it.
You're wrong. I mean,
you're wrong, man. You're wrong.
I'm just like, that's not a gray shirt. I'm wrong.
No, this is gray. Today's gray. It's gray day. It's also Friday the 13th, which is appropriate with everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, I guess they stopped making Friday the 13th. I used to look forward to the new release, but what? Okay, Anthony, you telling me you've never seen any of the Friday the 13th movies?
Long time ago, I probably saw.
Okay, but you did. That's the point. You did.
Right. The fact that you look forward to them.
Well, back in the day, I mean,
well, I didn't know you were such a horror movie aficionado, though.
I'm not a horror movie aficionado. I like them.
You like the Friday the 13th specifically? Yeah,
I like Jason Voorhees. I like The Mask.
You like the idea of mass murder. You like mass murder in a nice secluded camp.
Yeah.
So
I like the pleasant surroundings of that.
I like environmentally sound and sustainable murder.
Well, there's good. Like, what's the good murder show that just the one that traces all the serial killers on Netflix? What is that one called?
Oh,
you know which one?
Manhunter.
Manhunter.
No. Manhunter.
Like, I love that show. I do.
Yeah.
As an example.
Let me just say one more thing before we start the show. I've always thought that the NFL, at least recently, that the NFL is the root of all evil, and I'm convinced that the NFL is the organization that generated the coronavirus, because now there's nothing in terms of sports news except the NFL free agency, which is going to start next Monday. Everything is going to be focused on.
That's quite the long play. Let's plan it in China.
Yeah. That is the long play.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, do I think Roger Goodell is capable of that kind of conspiracy? Of course he is.
Yeah, but if you have time in your hands and you want to read.
It's almost as good as the Dean Koontz book from 1981 that everybody keeps quoting. Oh, it's the Wuhan thing.
That's why people write these stories
of that book, but you guys did.
I know. If people didn't write stories that weren't believable, they wouldn't get published. Of course, there's going to be stuff that there's been. How many?
Wuhan. It was in. I said it was probably a city in China. He just probably picked it out on a map.
Correct.
Well,
it wasn't Beijing.
All the pandemic movies. If you go to Netflix and type in pandemic, there's a bunch of pandemic movies.
Well, no, I think I was just going to bring that because everybody has been talking about the movie Contagion, the Steven Soderbergh movie.
I didn't even see it.
I never saw it. It has an unbelievable cast, like Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow, Lawrence Fishburne, like tons of people, Matt Damon. I never saw the movie. I mean, the one
it was a good cast until you mentioned Matt Damon, by the way. But anyhow, go ahead.
No, the one I've seen is Outbreak, which I think everybody's the one with Dustin Hoffman and Rene Russo, and that was like
I didn't see it.
That was like some sort of
years ago.
African sort of like Ebola type of thing. So it's not. But yeah, I mean, everybody's gonna point to the movie The China Syndrome when 3 Mile Island happened.
I did see that one.
Oh, Barticus just ruined it for me. He says Gwyneth Paltrow dies immediately. There's no point for me watching then because I love Gwyneth Paltrow.
I don't care about virus movies. I really don't. I don't know why. I have no interest in watching them. I have no interest in catching them.
Like zombie movies.
Not really. No, I don't. I'm not a Walking Dead guy.
I don't know. I thought you were a Walking Dead guy.
I did. No. I mean, look. Back in the day, I loved Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I did, and it did have zombies in it. I also was very drunk when I saw it. So let's be real.
Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, March 13th, 2020.
I'm Anthony Majoni from Sunrise Philly Magazine.
I'm Russ Cohen, author.
I'm Michael Lagello, host, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, Ack will be joining us momentarily. Meanwhile, we'll discuss, sort of the standstill right now with the NHL, and obviously the news came down after the show yesterday that the NHL would suspend, and we'll say the word
pause. Soft word for the stockholders.
Yes. Now, let's go with that because Gary Bettman, we know, is a lawyer, and he very carefully chose his words, as Anthony just said, pause, which connotes we are going to complete the regular season as is at a future point, and we're going to award the Stanley Cup in a playoff scenario, and then have the draft. Like everything will continue beautifully, but it's just delayed right now. Which, let's just say, I believe that's a pipe dream, because I think something will have to give. And I want let me just say this, and then we can all comment on it. If this pause is a month or 6 weeks, and we start where we would normally at April 1st on May 1st. You're going to either have to shorten series in the playoffs. You're going to have to eliminate the remainder of the regular season at wherever 69 to 71 or 72 games, whatever all the teams are. There's no way scheduling wise, and Brian Burke on the Hockey Central made the best point in terms of, yes, they're checking into building availability into July, but the problem is that these buildings in summer months, he was saying in Vancouver, they had to bring in special dehumidifiers. And I've seen that like in Toronto for the Calder Cup, where they funnel in piping and they're pumping out the humid air in 80, 90 degree temperatures. It's $250,000 just to install this. So you're talking about doing that in potentially empty arenas just to keep it from fogging up, just to prevent.
And this is something before the hiatus was announced and they were still talking about empty arenas. I brought that up. In a tweet, I said flat out, I was like, I think hiatus is probably the way to go. But the thing is, in a quote unquote pause and restart circumstance, you're pushing into July. The ice surface is just, we all talk about it in the Stanley Cup Finals. As good as the play is, especially if it's in a warm market where they're trying to compensate, it's tough. And if you're talking about playing hockey in July, it's going to be like trying to hit a puck with an oar.
Yeah, I mean, I've covered every cup for since 2003, and I've seen all those tubes and I walk over them all the time. And yeah, there's a great cost that goes in. And unfortunately, if they were to broadcast, if they were having the Stanley Cup on July 4th, they would have very poor attendance because everybody would be out seeing the July 4th stuff, fireworks and everything else. So there's a lot of danger in extending a season. Yesterday on Facebook, I just wrote that, hey, I think they'll have a season. How long will it be? How long will the playoffs be? I said they've lost 2 seasons before. I wrote, I don't think it'll happen, but there is a possibility it could happen.
Yeah,
and there are people out there that don't want to consider the possibility, but you have to, because again, and Brian Burke did a good job of this, and I think we've said it before too, the league can only control so much. A city and a municipality can shut everything down at any time if they deem it. They are a higher power.
In my estimation, the regular season is over with, because I can't see a situation where they're coming back in 2 or 3 weeks into a situation where they can play even a shortened schedule of like 3 or 4 games to bring everybody up to the same game amount, 73, 74, something like that. The only thing I can think that would compensate for that, because honestly, the teams that want to continue with the regular season are the teams that are probably 2-3 points out of a playoff spot and want to qualify for the playoffs and don't want to miss out by a point. The only thing that mitigates that is expanding the playoffs in terms of a play-in where like maybe the 2 wild card teams play 9 and 10 in a round robin type of situation.
Like a best of 3 to best of 5 potentially to get those
at most best of 3.
And you would be basically putting in the Pierre LeBrun scenario, which he had been suggesting for a number of times, and then they get the chance to see how it would work in what is an extreme environment, obviously.
Well, the one thing I found interesting, Russ, is that Burke basically, and Burke is tied in with Bettman and with everybody in the league. Burke and he has been, and Bettman has been very, very anti-expansion of playoffs. That basically he knows that the playoff expansion is going to happen.
Oh yeah, we all know that. We all knew that, and I
never admit that.
And I think they're going to have to do it this time because I don't think they're going to be able to finish the regular season either. They might get in 72 games, so everybody can play the same amount. And
it might work. And in this circumstance, when you've got so many teams who are potentially who are losing their home dates, it's a lot of money lost.
Right.
This can compensate, I think, in many ways for that loss with an expanded playoff field.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, there are some teams that no matter how you slice it are probably not making the playoffs. So my suggestion yesterday was you take the 2 from outside of the playoff realm in the East and the West. You let them play. That's the play-in. Then they play one of the 2 teams of the wild cards, and the winner plays that one, the best of the 2 wild cards. And those teams, at least because they're 1 or 2 points out, have a shot.
I think you seed it. I think you would probably seed it, Russ.
You could seed it. That's fine.
A 1-4. Wild card 1, wild card 4, wild card 2, wild card 3.
Well,
make it a best of, and because of the lost dates, if you're starting the playoffs, you probably got to make it a legitimate series. I would make it probably best of 5.
Best of 3. You got to remember
best of 3 for that.
You got to remember time constraints here, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling what's going to happen is you're going to have something like if they have a play-in series, it'll be best of 3, probably played over 3 or 4 days,
and the
first
higher seed.
No, the first 2 rounds will be 5, best of 5.
Right, exactly. I'm referring to I'm turning to the wild card round though. I would say probably that whoever the higher the 2 wild cards is gets to choose which 2 games they get. If they want 1 and 3,
I'll bet you anything. It's 1. It's like 1 game on the road.
The thing is, you're looking at a bit of additional travel. I mean, that's again
go back and forth.
You're looking at potentially 2 trips.
I'll tell you the one thing they're not going to do. They're not going to do the winning percentage one because you're not going to have a season end and show teams that finished in the playoffs and now all of a sudden they're not in the playoffs because of winning percentage.
I concur with that. I don't think points percentage is
not going to do that.
Expanding the field is probably when they come back is going to be the way to go, and you have 10 teams in.
Yep. What it'll be, and use this as an example, in the East, if you had, and say 7 and 8 are the 2 wild cards, and 9 and 10 teams outside of the wild card, that means Carolina playing the Rangers in a best of 3, and Columbus playing the Islanders in a best of 3, and the winner of the first series would play Boston, and the winner of the other series would play Washington.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Or again, depending on how the seeding comes out, if it's a 3, if the lower ones get in, then obviously whoever the lowest seed, as you said, plays Boston, and whoever the higher seed advances plays Washington. Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's how it'll go. I think the next thing we should talk about from a standpoint of what's going to happen with the league, and then we could talk about players. I was going to talk about a prospect. For the draft, we're going to start doing draft stuff on the show because why not? They're going to have a draft. That's
right, exactly.
Guarantee.
I mean, in terms of I know it's in June. In terms of the question is, would it be happening? Would you be doing the draft during? That's one of the things I'm wondering about during the playoffs.
I don't know.
How can you do that, especially with conditional picks?
Well, he said you can't do it. I say you could do it if the cup starts and you wanted to still have the draft. You'd say, all right, these are the final 2 teams.
Just alternate.
Yeah, just basically just roll the dice.
Time's already blocked off in Montreal, I'm assuming, and it's difficult to move it off to a later date.
But they might. They probably will move it to a later date.
Yeah.
But we don't know for sure. We don't know any of this.
No, nobody does.
If they shorten the season and they still have the playoffs, they might be able to stay on track. That's still possible. So, end of the day, though, what is going to be a factor is the salary cap. And there is a fake rumor out there that Bettman talked about it. He did not talk about the salary cap. He is not going to talk about the salary cap.
Right.
But we can, because no matter what happens with this season, teams are going to lose money. Not the teams that are out of the playoff race, because they weren't expecting to be in it, but they're still going to lose maybe a few home games. But most teams are going to lose money. The ones that are actually in the cup may lose more than the teams that are out of it, simply because the attendance may not be what they'd like.
Well, remember last year at the GM's meetings right after the trade deadline, the calculation was, and this was when everything was glowing and positive, that the cap would go up. And this was from, I think, 79.5 was the cap amount 2 years ago, or last season, not this season, that it was going to go up to between 83 and 85. And then what happened was Toronto got eliminated early. Vegas got eliminated early. Some first round series ended in sweeps. The revenue was not as grandiose as they thought. I guess Boston and St. Louis wasn't a big revenue maker. I mean, at the end of it, the Players Association decided not to kick the escalator clause in, and the cap went to 81.5. Now, everything had been sort of targeting that the cap would go up marginally this year, but then at the GM's meetings a couple weeks ago, they said 84.5 to 88 million. That is that's gone now. That was a pipe dream then. There's no chance in hell. I'm telling you right now, and Russ, you said it, I think it could go up maybe $1 million, but at most
only with the escalator. I think it's going to start at ground where it is now, and then the league's going to say, this is what it is. If you want to kick in the escalator, we could have it go up. That's up to the Players Association. But I think teams right now, if I'm a GM, I'm planning for the cap to be the same.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, what does that – what kind of effect does that have on teams? I can tell you, like with Toronto, I don't know how dependent they were on the cap going up significantly, because if they were really depending on that as a means to go out and make moves, I think that they were miscalculating, because nobody really thought the cap was going to go up significantly this year, maybe a couple $1 million at most. It's not like they were planning for it to go up $5 or $6 million so they could go out and pursue Alex Pietrangelo in free agency. I don't think that was realistic, but they just re-signed Jake Muzzin. No new contracts are kicking in, but they don't have the room of those the David Clarkson or the Nathan Horton contracts to create space for themselves. I mean, it's going to have ramifications for teams like Toronto, like teams like Vancouver. I mean,
there's a big ramification. So Cap Friendly has an estimated for them next year at 88. That's what they're estimating the Leafs to be at next year.
Right.
So if that is the case and nothing happens with the cap, they will do things to alleviate that cap problem, and they're going to have to. And that's what teams might have to do. Now, it all depends, again, like as an example, Cece's a UFA. They're not signing him. Fine. Barry's a UFA. They're not signing him. Fine. Travis Dermott's certainly not going to make what he thought he was going to make.
He'll be a bridge.
Gauthier may just get dealt because they may not even want to give him any money. Spets is the UFA. He'll be gone.
No, they'll bring him back on the same contract.
Right. Clifford maybe comes back on the same deal or less. Malgin, who knows? But those are the decisions and they might not be shopping in free agency. I think it's going to be incumbent on the players as to whether there is a good free agency period now or not, because you can't make up revenue out of the clear blue sky.
Well, that's the other thing, Anthony. I mean, right now, say, for example, they delay the season and we're awarding the Stanley Cup in the middle of July.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are you not giving the players enough time the usual couple months of rest and rehabilitation to get ready for the next camp, which we know is important. But free agency might start August 1st. And
right.
then
the contracts, it's the other thing. Contracts are written for July 1, right?
That would have to be amended by.
They'd have to that PA would have to agree to amend that to August, which again doesn't give them a long window of time. Which is why I've also brought up the point of the possibility that this may affect, if they're going to get this season in, they may affect the scheduling for next year to begin with. There may be the whole case of the players are going to need some level of recovery time, and the season might not start necessarily, in the normal time in October that it normally would be. We may be looking at a Halloween or later. So you're looking at potentially a Halloween or early November start, which, again, if baseball is playing, then you not have to worry about bumping up necessarily against too much of baseball potentially at the end of their season. Yeah.
Also, remember, there's going to be a cost of insurance because their insurance probably only runs till the end of June.
Right. Now, exactly. And that's another kind. That's what I'm saying. It's not. It's really complicated in this case because you got to get all those ducks in a row if you're going to be having if you're having a Stanley Cup playoff series in July.
Which again, I think is a bad idea simply because, Anthony, do you have a vacation plan this year?
Yeah.
When you going?
We have a few. Number one, obviously, first thing we have is the draft. But then after that, we're going to Palm Springs for a competition for my son.
So let's say you're going.
We're definitely.
Let's say you're going first week of July, right?
Probably second or so.
Okay. Well, let's just say you're going the first week.
I get it. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And now the Stanley Cup falls that first week of July, and the Flyers are in it. What are you doing? You're going to be on vacation.
I'm gonna bind. There's no question about that.
And that's what's going to happen to fans.
Exactly. Which is why I'm seriously wondering with regards to that. That's why I think it's not a coincidence that a lot of these other leagues in Europe have basically said that, we're laying it up for now, and then we're going to start, we'll see after the summer.
Well, by the way, when you go to Palm Springs, check out the new rink that they're building. I forget who it's for. Is it the Sharks or the Kings? I think it's the Kings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Check it out. Give us a report. Anyhow.
Well, the SM Liga canceled today. Canceled, not postponed, not paused, canceled.
Yep.
And I believe the Swiss League, the Swedish League, the only one that has
the English League, the EIHL canceled as well.
The Deutsche League, the
German. Other than the League. And there's one other league potentially. I think that's it. Hockey is pretty much
that Russian healthcare system. No. But no, I just I'm sorry, but no, I'm surprised the KHL is continuing. I really am.
I am too. And again, they're playing in arena, and I know, certainly in Moscow, I know the arenas are pretty well empty, or at least extremely low. What we would have seen here, if things were being played. But
okay, so Anthony, I can't believe I'm going to bring this up, but you'll know about this. In Europe, with the European Soccer League, it looks like there's a guy who tested positive, and Ronaldo's on that team.
Yeah,
are they going to cancel that league? Are they going to postpone?
No, it pretty much. I know the Champions League has been put on the big league, which has all the teams in Europe playing each other.
The manager of Arsenal contracted the coronavirus, so the English League, I think,
Premier League's going to. It's.
At this point, the only thing that's going to be on TV is friggin' NASCAR. I'm sorry, that's not
NASCAR and bowling. Boy, it's like back when I was like 12 years old.
Then, what's going to happen? Somebody's going to contract it there too, and that's going to get canceled. So find some books to read, kiddos. Ed Ross, that's your cue.
I have 9 of them.
What? No, I made sure I got my Netflix.
I'll be catching up. That's the thing I look at. I think it's true of a lot of people between reading, keeping my kids busy because they're going to be probably I'm going to be here with them. So
you're crazy.
So I'm going to bring up a prospect, but in case people missed it, I'll mention some of this too. So from a Flyers perspective, I saw Saginaw play a couple of weeks ago, and Mason Millman's a Flyers prospect, plays for Saginaw. I did put up an article on Sportsology about that and what I saw and how his teammate Cole Perfetti sees him as a player. People could read that, and I think it's interesting because Perfetti is a very smart kid. I think I've got him at number 4 on my list. I think he goes anywhere from 4 to 6, and I don't think he goes any lower. Like he's that good. He may not be the biggest guy at, he's 5'10", 180, but you know what? You don't even notice it, but he's already over 100 points. He's got 111 points.
How's he rate on CHIQ?
What's CHIQ?
Oh, on hockey intelligence quotient.
Okay, well, I will tell you, he is off the charts. He not only is a smart.
I'm teeing these things up for you today, Russ. I'm promoting your book. I know.
I appreciate it.
I'm helping you invent a new statistic.
He's hitting it like Dave Kingman. He's like,
well, because I've never made up that I like it. I may use that. But the idea is this kid is brilliant as a mathematician, and I'm going to have some things in my article that'll be on Sportsology either later or tomorrow. And that's something where you don't think about it, but math, geometry, it can help you on the ice. It can help you with angles. It can help you how you see things, how the play is. And that's something that really does help this kid. So again, pretty special player, 111 points. Just to give you an example, next closest guy in his team has 80. So he is ripping it up. I think he's second in the OHL. And there's always a lot of debate. The debate is, well, would I take, Byfield over him? Sure. Take Byfield over him. You're going to take Lafreniere over him. But I think starting third, I love Drysdale. I have Drysdale ranked third, but I still think starting third, some teams are going to start talking about him because he is a center and because he has all this talent, and he may have the highest hockey IQ in the draft. I don't know if anybody's even going to argue that. It's a hard thing to measure right now. And I could also tell you he's a great
better start. I just gave you a statistic. You better start coming up with a measurement for it then.
Right. But I could also tell you that he is a great interviewer, and people always look at the physical side of the combine first, but really the interviews are 75% more important to teams than what they do on the floor physically, because if you give a lousy interview, they don't care how great you are physically. They really, and here's another thing. So when players are doing that interview, that is like your final job interview. Every team has talked to every player a million times already this year when their scouts have passed through town. They've met with them either on the side, they've introduced themselves, they've talked to them. So this is never, it's very rare when it's the first time a kid. Now, if you're a European player or something, then it might be the first time a team talks to you. But this is like your final interview.
Is it possible that it's going to be, because on top of the draft being in limbo, the combine, even though the combine happens during the playoffs and it's not, you can have it while the playoffs are going on. If there's still concerns about large gatherings and travel and things like that, the combine might be canceled.
It's not that large though, because honestly,
no. But let me finish my point. The most important thing, like you just said, was the interviews. Can they do those interviews via
Skype? Sure, yeah. But they do still want to see what they can do physically, and it is the only chance they get to do that, unless you're Arizona. But anyhow, that is the only time you get a chance to do that. And so I do think they'll still have it because, honestly, even if they cut the media by a little bit, in that building at one time, you don't even have 1,000 people.
Okay, breaking news here. Gary Bettman is on Hockey Central, or was on Hockey Central a few minutes ago. Per Chris Johnston from Sportsnet, Bettman said the NHL is doing all sorts of modeling about what the rest of the season might look like depending on when they're able to resume. Mentions a large range of possibilities under consideration. Let's see here. I'm expecting next season to be a normal season, Bettman said. And finally, my hope and expectation is that we can finish this season in some form and award the Stanley Cup. So what this tells you is they don't know. No,
they don't know. Actually, that's why I think Adam Silver did the best job of any league right now because, and I said this yesterday because I don't know, some reporter somewhere it got out where in the letter to the fans, Adam Silver said, it's going to be at least 30 days. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Yeah.
And I know the NHL didn't want to commit to that, but it was smart that the NBA did commit to that. Now, granted, they don't have as much season to worry about. They probably have fewer games even at this point because they play. I don't know, where are they at in the NBA season, Ant? Do you know?
They end in mid-April. So
no, but how many games have they played so far?
Think like in the early 60s.
All right, so actually they're in the same spot, but their season goes longer, so it doesn't affect them as much. Missing just a month doesn't affect them greatly because they only play a few games a week anyhow. Like 3 games a week. So
to answer your question so far, actually, they are in terms of games. See, that's the thing. They put the records up and not games played. So they are at 60. So Milwaukee's at 53. So they're at 65 games.
Okay.
65 games.
So they're 4 or 5 games behind the NHL.
Which, again, makes sense because the NHL starts before them to begin with.
So they can play it a little bit more fast and loose than the NHL. I get it. But I do think it was smart for Silver to do that. I really do. I know baseball said they're just delaying it 2 weeks this season. Well, it's probably going to be more than that.
Well, this is where these leagues are going to be coming into problems because you have individual municipalities deciding in terms of how long to ban people from getting together. Right now, say Santa Clara County is saying, nobody over 1,000 people, so that ruled out San Jose, then it spread to San Francisco. Now that seems to be going all over the place. But like the governor of Illinois apparently got an agreement with all the major league teams in Chicago that they would not play games until May the 1st. Now, if all of a sudden the NHL says, "Well, we want to get our games going on April 20th," well, the Blackhawks aren't in the playoffs, so that might be an end around on it. But for Major League Baseball, who wants to start on April 15th, you can't unless you're going to start the Cubs and the White Sox on.
Let you redo the schedule and they play somewhere else.
Right, and from what they're saying about Major League Baseball, they're just going to pick up the schedule where it like if the season starts on May 1st, wherever it was on May 1st, that's where you're starting.
See, I don't think they're doing that. I honestly
that's what apparently Manfred said.
If that's what they're doing, it's stupid because again, then you're guaranteeing. See,
you're guaranteeing a balanced schedule is what you're guaranteeing.
Well, you're guaranteeing that, but what the other thing is so. As an example, like the Wells Fargo Center sent out a memo yesterday saying basically anything that's running in March isn't, and they're going to reschedule. So they're not giving you any money back because they plan on rescheduling, right? You do this for Major League Baseball, you are guaranteeing yourself you will have to refund tickets now. If they would have just run the season the way it was supposed to start, and you tell people, hey, your ticket 1, that's this date, and then you go from 2 is the next date, and everything's going to be the same. They're just different dates now. And if you can't go to that game, we'll let you hand it in for another game. But I'm telling you, when you charge more for opening day, like as an example, the Mets regular season ticket prices are about $26-$30. Opening day's prices are about $75 to $100. If now opening day is against a different team at a different time later in the year and people can't make it, there is going to be hell to pay for those clubs with the fans, and probably they'll get less fans as a result because they're going to feel cheated. I can't believe Manfred would go with that. We'll see. That's his early saying, so I'm not going to hold him to it because things change.
Just think of the massive rescheduling they would have to do.
Who cares?
Well, that's
a month to do it.
Well, that he apparently does care if they're just going to start the schedule as is. You're talking about, say, 120 game schedule. I know, like, for example, the Yankees play the Orioles and play Tampa the first 2 series on the road, and then they play some series at Yankee Stadium. Most of those early games are division games. They usually play inside their division. The first, not the Yankees, but all the teams play inside their own division the first 2-3 weeks of the regular season, and then they don't play those teams again until like probably May or June. You're losing division games, which could be the difference for a lot of teams between, winning first place in your division or not. So,
right.
But I think right now they're looking at just the train wreck it will be to be able to reorganize schedules on the fly. And based on what Bettman said, it's like right now it's impossible to plan until you know when you're starting. And if you don't know when you're starting, I mean, Anthony, at a certain point, there's got to be a drop dead date where if we don't start by May 1st, this is untenable. We can't.
Yeah, it's going to be untenable at that point. Once we get to that point of things, the game's up. You have to call it and then hopefully be able to start things up again and whenever the league calendar will allow you to do so.
So Manfred, what he's telling us essentially is there won't be a 162 game season. Now it's going to be like a 147 game season.
Probably more likely. Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it sounds like. And to me, that's what it always, when this happened, that seemed like the most likely scenario to begin with, at least.
And I think the only way around, because remember, the first thing to fall in the NHL schedule and the NBA schedule will be the remainder of the regular season. It's a question of being able to play any games, because the playoffs are where they make the most money. Playoffs are where they get the most ratings. It may be a situation where they're going to play those games in front of no fans if there's still a ban on large gatherings. But the first thing to fall in terms of just being able to finish the season and award the Stanley Cup, like Bettman says, is the remainder of the regular season. That's anywhere from between 12 to 14 games. That they'll drop I know the owners want the money from those games. That's a sizable chunk. But in terms of being able to complete the season, that's the first thing to fall, and it'll fall pretty quickly. So
yeah, I think that's fair. That's why a lot of this stuff, we're going to have different information every day. It's going to change weekly. I think leagues are going to send out on their newsletters weekly updates, even if it says nothing's different. But they're going to all have challenges. Like, as an example, like NHL Network starting Monday, what are they going to show?
Well, they're still going to show Hockey Central at noon, but yesterday.
What are they going to talk about?
Well, yeah, yesterday. The Sabres are on MSG in Western New York, and obviously the cable had the schedule of them playing in Montreal. And when I turned the channel on, they were playing Hold'em poker. So we're gonna get lots of Chris Moneymaker over the next.
Oh, Chris Moneymaker, because I think I've heard quite. I think it was Daniel Negreanu. Negreanu already said, we need to no poker at all, because you're going to talk about a place where you're going to have people congregating.
Yeah, you want a cesspool of humanity? Go to a casino. It's like smoking.
We can watch. Who's the guy? Who's the for bowling? It was who do you think you are? I am guy.
Oh yeah,
watch that one on loop.
I will tell you this. I did some digging. There is one sporting event left that hasn't been canceled. Can you name it?
Highlight.
Not highlight. It's a major one.
Curling.
Oh, horse racing.
Well, horse racing hasn't been, but they should, because it's ridiculous. Nope. It involves humans.
Involves humans.
Not UFC, right?
Not UFC. UFC is. They did say they're going to do it to an empty crowd. Their next one, so they are.
I know the XFL is pausing. I know the
XFL is paused.
WrestleMania may shut down.
WrestleMania has not shut down.
Is that it?
That's the one.
Yeah,
so we'll talk about that.
Well, Peter. Okay, Peter Rosenberg, who's on the Michael K show on Yes, works for the WWE too, and he said, and this is typical, Vince McMahon basically will not shut down unless there's absolutely no way that the show can't go on. Meaning,
so there has to be the armed guard,
right?
The state guard has to show up,
knock on Vince's door, and say, "Mr. McMahon,
shutting this down."
Before you try to suplex us to a table, you're not going to get through all of us. So let's just have this discussion now and realize what you need to do.
Yeah. Now, this isn't steroid use or STDs. This is a communicable. No. But
now, back in the day, they did have a match between The Rock and Mankind, and it was an empty stadium. I don't know where they did it. It was back in the.
It's all sports theater anyway, right? That's the new thing. Like, wrestling is not fake; it's athletic theater.
Right. But they did sell a lot of tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part. But again, it's in Tampa. And as we know, Florida may not make as good of decisions as other places.
There we go.
Here we go. So we're going to Florida man, Florida woman now, are we?
I'm sorry. Do you see Florida making a lot of prudent decisions over the years?
Well, they surely did in 2000.
So right now, Tampa, this event is still a go.
Yeah,
that's all I'm telling you.
Well, yeah,
viruses don't carry well in hot weather, as
right. Yeah, as far as they hope.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Well, we'll call it a day there, and
there you go.
We'll be back on Monday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. Are we doing an off the post this weekend, guys?
I think we should. I think probably since we did this show today, I think, and also it's going to be tough for it. Will be
this will serve as that.
It'll be tough this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure because we
will hold off this weekend. This is our OTP.
This is the Buzzcast off the post show.
Yes,
well, took it over.
The host, so there you go. I'm sure Eck will be thrilled.
Yes,
we occupied it.
We co-opted it. Yes, we will be back on Monday with another edition of the.
All right, hold on.
Up.
Oh, something.
I have something. So as of yesterday, the mayor of Tampa has said there is no need to cancel WrestleMania right now, with a few weeks until the show.
So what you're saying is Vince opened up
the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor happen.
Vince opened up the coffers and slipped him a $50,000 donation to his next campaign.
I mean, it's the only thing not getting canceled with a bunch of people.
I really want to see Stephanie McMahon. Okay. For Anthony Mangione.
I'm not even sure what that means, but okay.
There's a lot of her to see. For Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz,